Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome, light beings, to our first episode of the SoulPod Podcast. My name is Crystal Cassidy. I'm the CEO and founder of SoulPod. We're a spiritual wellness app. I'm so excited for the conversations that we're going to have around spirituality, even esoteric topics, extraterrestrial contact. We're going to get into all of it here on the podcast. So this is for those of you that have a deep curiosity for the spiritual awakening process. So I am very excited to be here. I come from a biotech background. I have a degree in biochemistry. I've also been a meditator since I was 12 and a daily meditator for over a decade. I also teach Kundalini yoga, breath work, and I'm a Reiki master. And I'm also joined here with my amazing co-host, Cat Mansfield. So I'll let Kat introduce herself.
Hello. Thank you, Crystal. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited for the potential that exists in these conversations and in this community. I'm a yoga teacher and meditation teacher and have been working with SoulPod now for, I don't even know, a few months, and have been a part of the SoulPod community for that amount of time as well, and have truly felt the impact of what these rituals have in store for us and just what the potential is for the channeling of these messages and the concepts that we're talking about. There's just so much that we are addressing within SoulPod and within these conversations that we're going to be having. So I am so excited to be here and excited to drop in with you.
So happy to have you here, Kat. And I think this time and on the planet right now, this conversation about awakening and spirituality and what it means for the quality of our lives is so important. So let's dive into today's topic, which is all about spiritual awakening. So we're going to start by feeling into, first of all, what is a spiritual awakening? I think that's a big question, and it's a very deep conversation on its own. So, Kat, maybe what do you think a spiritual awakening is?
Yeah, I love or have loved thinking about this question and thinking about conceptualizing what is going on when we talk about a spiritual awakening. And I think the most foundational description is what SoulPod's mission is that process of moving from fear to love. And
Mm,
that whole initiation that starts in the willingness to move from fear to love.
the SoulPod mission, fear to love. That's why
Mhm.
we're here. That's what we're all about. And it sounds simple, but it's so involved. Going from
Mhm.
this consciousness of limitation to more and more possibility as you awaken. You mentioned the word initiation, which I think is very potent when you're talking about the awakening journey. And I think we're always awakening. I also think that there's times in our life when we have increased opportunity to take those initiations deeper. So it's an offering. And however that
Mhm.
shows up in your life, sometimes through suffering, sometimes through joy. It can be unconscious and spontaneous. It can be conscious and very intentional. And you have these different points that maybe your soul has planned for where you can really take that awakening journey further. I was just talking to somebody recently. They're in this initiation point in their journey, and
Mhm.
they know they're in it. They know they're being asked to go deeper. They're feeling fear about it because they can feel the unknown asking them to meet it. And that can be scary. But I love that the word awakening is a verb. So it's a process, it's a becoming. It's like this, the river of your life. You have all these twists and turns, and you're awakening at different speeds at different times. You're hitting plateaus, which can also be very potent. But when we think about the energy centers, and a lot of the work we do in SoulPod is helping you really harmonize those energy centers through your awakening process. But our first center is all about finding that safety. It can be more challenging to initiate the awakening process when you don't feel safe physically, in the world, in your body. So each center has its invitation as you bring that energy up, up, and up. And you can hit all kinds of, or you will hit all kinds of lessons along the way. But I do view this journey of awakening as being not just in this lifetime, but a continuous, infinite one. You're always becoming more and more whole.
And I think there are also like synonymous ways of talking about spiritual awakening, because when I think about it, it's synonymous with healing, it's synonymous with raising your consciousness, it's synonymous with really being available to presence. So many of these invitations that you're talking about are truly an invitation for us to be totally present in our bodies. And it requires that sense of safety in self, of like, no matter what I encounter, no matter what magnitude of emotion I encounter, no matter what magnitude of fear, shame, whatever it is that I am met with, I am safe enough to experience that in my body. With that comes a zooming out, right? Despite the fear, despite the shame, I am inherently worthy. Like all of those are huge milestones, but also requirements within the spiritual awakening process or the healing process. Essentially, remembering the truth of who you are. It's similar to that verb of awakening. What came through early in my spiritual journey was just like on repeat. It was like a mantra that came through. I had this opening, and remember the truth came through with just over and over again. That verb of like remembering, that feels like a lot of what the spiritual awakening process is. It's a remembering that we are inherently worthy, we're inherently divine, despite any of the shame, despite any of the fear, uncertainty, all of the crunchiness of the human experience. Zooming out from that and returning to the truth of our perfection, of our power, that peacefulness that exists outside of all the crunchiness, feels like what the spiritual awakening process is inviting us to step back into.
I love that. Yeah, I think a lot of times we get maybe confused that spiritual awakening is becoming something that you're not yet. And what you're talking about, I think, is very important, which is you're actually becoming what you are already inherently. You're becoming more and more whole. This is inherent to who it is that you are. So I think the term remembering is so powerful because you're remembering like, oh, this is what love, like beyond relationship love, remembering of our connection to everything that is. When you have those big moments, it's giving you this, at first, maybe temporary exposure to a whole new way of being, which I think we can also call moments of enlightenment, where the light comes in and it shows you that both of which was hidden, which is also your wholeness, and now you're seeing more of it, you're feeling more of it. I really like the term remembering because it makes moving through those challenges that you mentioned, like shame and guilt and resentment and unworthiness, a more palatable to move through when you know those are just illusions that are overlaying your wholeness. When you start to open up in your consciousness to the unknown, it requires courage to step towards that cliff because you don't know what's on the other side of the awakening journey because you're dancing with the unknown. So that relationship between the known and the unknown, I think, is very inherent to the awakening journey.
Totally. It's like approaching our daily lives almost as if every moment and every day were a ceremony. Yes, there are the big spiritual awakening moments, whether it be taking mushrooms in the forest or an ayahuasca trip or just a really dropped in meditation where you like swear you're levitating. You know, there are those moments that stand out within the spiritual journey. And like you said, it's the daily tuning in, it's the daily coming back to that presence, coming back to the full sensation in your body, your feet on the ground. Those are the invitations, and they're available all of the time. And especially, yes, when we're met with moments of self-doubt or overwhelming fear, those are the times where we get to return to that presence and really like allow for the dance with the universe, allow for that trust muscle to start to be built with the universe of like, okay, I perhaps I don't feel ready to take this leap, and the universe is inviting me to. So, what if I trust that I'll be caught on the other end? And then it starts to become so fun to witness all the ways that you're caught, all of the different times you leapt, and all the different times that the universe showed up with a net beneath you that in a way that you couldn't even conceive of. And then it becomes easier and easier to loosen your grasp on the illusion of control and really just like relinquish into the current. And again, that's like that's so much easier said than done, and that's why this is an everyday invitation, because every day you'll find yourself back in the grips of the illusion of control. And every day you're given the opportunity over and over again to relinquish control and trust. It's a
Yeah.
scary, it can feel like a scary thing, and it does require courage to trust that the universe is going to be there.
I don't know about you, but being a Virgo,
Oh, I'm also a Virgo.
that yeah, that like the Virgos, I mean, the control part is real. The analytical mind wants to understand the past so that it can predict the future. One thing I hear a lot from people is when they come across these moments of awakening in their lives, they're asking like, why is this happening to me right now? You know, I
Mm.
just got this question recently. Like, wait, why is all of a sudden these portals opening up? Why am I having these experiences? Why is it happening to me? Do you have any kind of feelings about that question?
Yeah, I'm like, lucky you. It,
Yeah.
you know, it's like I feel like two things. The way I see it, as souls incarnate, our souls have a journey, like a dharma, right? Lessons that they're meant to learn. Within those incarnations, we have smaller lessons that we're meant to learn, or more, I guess, human school. In each incarnation, we have these lessons that we're meant to learn, and they contribute to the overall growth and evolution of our soul. Each incarnation, we may be tasked with bigger lessons. We may be tasked with harder, more difficult life experiences. And that's what our soul needs in this incarnation to continue its evolution, right? And so
Hmm.
that's kind of like big picture for me. That's how I see it. That's how I see what's going on. And yes, that gives me some sort of solace in times of more of the crunchy spiritual awakening moments. And in a more granular perspective, what's happening, again, it feels like a gift, and it feels like an invitation to reorient around some of the experiences in our life and choose to view it that way. You know, for example, I recently have been in the depths of a grief portal. As you know, I lost my father about a year ago. Grief has been one of the biggest teachers for me, and that's something that we all have in common as humans, and it's one of the most intense spiritual portals that I've ever
Mm.
been through. And I truly see it as one of the biggest gifts that's ever been given to me, because it's given me the opportunity to access all of those things we talked about earlier: presence in my body, safety in my body, the
Mm.
willingness to be in the deepest, most painful emotions and feel it and be there
Mm.
100% and trust that for some reason this is a part of my story, for something greater, this is a part of my story. And it was a part of my father's story to give
Mm.
me this gift. I think there's a way for us to reorient around a lot of these difficult moments that the universe presents to us. Because even when you feel like you've awakened or reached a certain point on your spiritual awakening journey, there's always another invitation. There's always going to be another opportunity for us to go deeper, to be more devoted and surrendered to this human experience in our spiritual journey.
Kind of goes back to our point about enlightenment. Enlightenment sounds like this one event, but there's more past what we consider to be our understanding of enlightenment. There's always more. So even when I've had those big moments where I've felt dispersed into all that is, and you're outside of time, and it's super trippy, and you come back, you're really coming back to a new baseline. So your baseline is always, you may feel like you're doing this, but you're really not on the awakening journey.
Mm-hmm.
You're having this moment of increased awareness, and then you're maybe integrating, that's the integration part, and then you're having another kind of jump up in awareness and awakening, integrating. So you're really going like that, which I think is really important to remember, that that's continuously happening no matter where you're at on the awakening journey, whether you've had many experiences, whether you've felt that cosmic presence, that cosmic oneness. The cool thing, and this is why I am forever curious about the awakening process, is there's always more, and it gets increasingly fascinating and increasingly confirming that much of what we think to be true or real is really, really not. And it's really malleable. And we can talk about quantum physics another time. But
Yay.
as you have as you have those experiences, you start to not just believe that we're all connected, you start to know. So another element of the awakening journey that I think is powerful to remember is this journey from belief to knowing. But you only obtain that knowing through direct experience, through your own process. And everybody's awakening process is going to be unique to them, because we all came into this incarnation, as you mentioned, with different goals or different experiences that we're going to have. And we all have a different constitution, energetic constitution. And so we can't expect all of our journeys to look the same. So we have to allow that space for your own discovery and experience. And there are some elements that it seems like a lot of us tend to go through at certain times of the awakening journey. You can start to see things that maybe you didn't see before, like physically. Maybe that's ghost, maybe that's interdimensional beings, but sometimes that, at least for me, was part of my early awakening journey, is my perception seemed to open up to other ways of knowing. So it's really fascinating. But I think going back to the why of why do people enter these moments of increased awakening, I think to your point, there are certain kind of like flags on each soul's path where it's like, you know, you're going to have an opportunity right here. You know, for me, it was severe illness. That was a portal. That was intense. I learned a deeper relationship to surrender and the relationship to death in the physical. So that was very much felt like a karmic opportunity, but you have a choice. We have free will. So you can choose to take those invitations and run with them to serve your awakening. So that's part of the free will. And I think you spoke to something so important, which is this mindset of curiosity rather than victimization. Because we can so easily, and I totally understand how this happens. I've experienced it in my own life, where it feels like life is happening to you rather than coming from you. And that takes, I think, a lot of inner work and building of that awareness presence muscle that we were talking about, to start to frame things as an opportunity for you to awaken instead of being a victim to it. That mindset of openness, curiosity, courage, opportunity, possibility is, I mean, that just catapults you, I think, on the awakening journey.
I agree. And I heard someone say this on another podcast. I wish I could remember so I could credit them. But essentially, what they said is kind of where we start on the spiritual journey is everything's happening to me, more of that victim mindset. And then maybe when you've been in the work for a little bit, you transition towards everything's happening for me. And then the deeper you've been in the work, it's everything's happening through me. And that really stood out to me because I'm like, yes, that is it. Because everything's happening for me. That's a very empowering place to be. That's a beautiful place to be. And it's true. And that next level of everything is happening through me, it's a conversation, it's a dance. There's no right or wrong way. You're just porous. You're porous to receive, and it feels so much more peaceful and true and empowering, yes, but also like you're a key decision maker in how you respond, right? And so then what comes next? And I think that's just such a beautiful place to orient around your spiritual journey from.
Yeah, I think you mentioning that there is no right way. We talked about how each
Mm.
person has their own energetic constitution, so the awakening process is going to be
Mm-hmm.
unique to you. It's the ultimate adventure. And also from like a modality process perspective of going through the awakening journey, there is no right way. There's
Mm-hmm.
only your way. For me, personally, trusted the modalities and the processes and the teachers and the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances that presented themselves to me on my awakening journey. So you can really keep
Mm-hmm.
a spiritual third eye out for those things coming across your path because usually they're there for a reason.
And they're everywhere when you open your eyes. They're like the signs and the synchronicities and the 3 times that you've seen that book title come up, like, maybe I should read it. Just as soon as we open our eyes, the guideposts are everywhere. It's so cool. It's so cool.
It's so cool. It's magic. It's actual
Mm-hmm.
magic. I think the further you get into your spiritual journey, you're like, oh, magic's real. Like,
Totally.
you're just becoming aware of it.
Like, I'm not even surprised anymore. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, of course I called that in. I talked about it 2 days ago, and now here it
Yeah.
is. I'm a wizard.
Yeah. I'm a wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the mystic, you're the priestess. This
Mm-hmm.
is this is all like avatars of yourself that you get to know on the
Yeah.
awakening journey. I mean, it's the coolest.
You were talking about the stair visual of you're always ascending that
Hmm.
spiritual ladder. I just think that's so important to double click on because what came through for me is there are just so many times on this spiritual journey, especially if you're in this work, if you've been, if you're a meditator or, you have your practice, whatever it is, and you're in this work, there are so many times where I feel like I've experienced the same trigger, if you will, or same lesson that's come through. And what comes through next for me is like, how am I here again? How have I not overcome this?
Mm.
I'm obviously not doing it right, quote unquote, or it's not working, quote unquote. And all of the things
Hmm.
come through as to kind of just self-doubt the spiritual journey, right? Or doubt the spiritual journey.
Hmm.
And instead knowing that you like you said in your visual of the spiritual ladder, I tend to visualize it as a spiral. It's like
Mm.
you may be in the same space on the vertical axis, but you've ascended in the horizontal axis. So it might feel like a similar trigger, similar through line of what you're experiencing, whether it be fear, jealousy, shame, resentment, whatever it is that thing is that you're here to specifically heal. For me, a lot of times it came up as jealousy in relationship or insecurity, or a big one for me
Hmm.
in this lifetime is like really stepping into my inherent worthiness. I mean, for all of us, but
Hmm.
that's just a big through thread for me. And so knowing that it might feel the same, but my awareness of the emotion or my ability to hold space for it has expanded, or my ability to ask for support has expanded. My threshold to hold the feelings and not react has expanded. And that is
Hmm.
the growth. That is the journey. So it's not like you never tackle the same emotion again, or you never feel jealousy or envy or fear again. It's just that you're more equipped and you're more regulated as you do so.
Yeah, it's not each moment when you're going through this spiritual journey and you have what seems like a similar challenge. It's not necessarily like that challenge is a checkbox that you're just checking it and then you're on to the next.
Right.
It's like I think about caves a lot and turning like bringing the light into the cave. And it's like, oh, I'm in the same cave, but I have an additional light source.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think this is so powerful to hit on because I do think a lot of people, myself included, on the awakening journey, it can feel like you're not making progress. And that doubt creeps in, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, you really are. You're just seeing further into that cave. And for whatever reason that it may be for your awakening in your life, you're being asked if there's something else in there for you to see. And I may be in one of those caves right now
Mm.
too, myself, and
Yep.
keeping that openness and that curiosity. And I think through maintaining that level of consciousness in the caverns of our transformation, you'll be met with the wisdom at some point
Mm-hmm.
or another. So let's talk a little bit about what it can look like when somebody's being initiated into the awakening journey. What happens in their lives? What signs or symptoms do they have? I think from my perspective, when you're in the awakening vortex, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's through challenges being imparted onto you, or in my case at the very beginning, seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. Just started having experiences. I had been meditating for a while, and so I kind of created this foundation where things started to open up spontaneously, but intentionally. So what can that look like? I think a lot of times I see people who are in a period in their lives where they feel confused. They feel like they're at a
Mm-hmm.
crossroads. The heaviness of life can feel more apparent. You can sometimes feel like you don't know which way to turn.
Mm-hmm.
There may be this underlying feeling of angst or sadness or unhappiness. It could be a rock bottom of some sort, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of times, I think, from what I hear and what I've experienced, it's those times in your life that feel like on all levels a crossroad, a big moment where you're being asked, like, wait, who am I going to be in this? There can also be moments where certain spiritual things could happen. Maybe you've done your first psilocybin journey and you were opened up to a whole new way of feeling and being, and there's
Mm-hmm.
curiosity around that. And what does that mean for how you've been living your life up until this point?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean for me moving forward? What about you, Kat? What do you think a lot of people experience at the beginning of their awakening journey, and how does it feel for them?
I think oftentimes, unfortunately, there is a big rock bottom. I think it doesn't always have to get there. It definitely doesn't always have to get there. But for a lot of us, we're so resistant to listening. We're so resistant to tuning into what our soul is trying to tell us, to that truth of where we're meant to go next. And so we resist and we keep like just head down, going in the direction that we're going, whether it be with a job, whether it be with a relationship, whether it be a belief system. We just cling to the known, right? Oftentimes what happens next, and I mean, speaking to my experience, was huge rock bottom. Everything in my life, kind of everything that I at least brought me safety, dissolved. The place I lived, my relationship, my job, really all of the things that created the identity of Cat, the character of Cat, dissolved. And so I was met with this huge, just blank canvas of like, what am I meant to do? What is being asked of me? So I think that's definitely a common experience for people. I think before it gets to that point, the universe is trying to tell us where to go next. We don't have to let it get there. And the way that can look is really tuning into our body. The reason I think that it happens rock bottom first is because then oftentimes we find practices that help us be in our body, that help us fine tune that discernment so that we can tune into that compass more easily of like, okay, this doesn't energize me. This doesn't feel good. After I leave an interaction with this person, I'm sick. We can fine tune that. And usually that comes from the practices that we develop after rock bottom. But
Mm-hmm.
if we are able to tune into our body and really become still and listen, the truth is trying to be heard. Only you can tune in and assess and read that barometer within yourself. With that, it's extremely empowering. But I think the trap is that our society has outsourced all of those answers. So we've really dimmed our own internal guidance system. When you start to hear alarm bells going off inside of you, however that looks, like you can't stop thinking about this one thing. You can't stop thinking about this one country you're being pulled to, or you can't help but feel like something's not right. That is your opportunity to tune in and listen before it gets to the rock bottom.
Hi there, SoulPod listener. If you're looking to go deeper into your spiritual journey, check out the SoulPod app on the App Store. You can start your free trial, get paired with a journey that's most relevant to where you're at in your spiritual development, and go deeper day by day through breath work, meditation, contemplation, mantra, and meet your soul fam in your SoulPod. You can find SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today. I think this really speaks to my belief that there is a momentum to the universe, and that momentum is in the direction of awakening, of oneness, of waking up. So you're going to get there, whether it's in this lifetime or another star system. Like you'll get there. And I think there's something very special about this time on the planet right now for the collective that we are all a part of, to really wake up so that we can get to another experience of collective wholeness. There's this micro aspect of the personal experience of alarm bells ringing, like you mentioned, that's indicative of, wait, there's something for me to pay attention to here. And I think it also goes for the collective. There's alarm bells ringing of, wait, collectively, there's something to pay attention to here. I think you mentioning the outsourcing of our ability to understand ourselves and to build that internal alignment really ultimately is only through your own consciousness, your own soul. How much of your soul, which is wholeness, can you bring into this dimension that you're currently in as a human being in this time and space? I really think that's the ultimate goal of the awakening process, is how much soul can you bring in this lifetime? And I think your soul is speaking to you. I think that's what the universe is, as you say, that's what those alarm bells are, is like you have an opportunity to be in more alignment than you currently are at this point in your life. And for whatever reason that is, to your point, like trusting that, trusting those little internal nudges, which sometimes you're not going to even hear unless you give yourself that time and space to hear those whispers of, wait, this isn't quite right, or something feels off here. Or for me, early on in my journey, it was moving from where I was, and that wasn't the place for me.
Same.
And I had to eventually take a big leap and listen to that, not knowing where I was going to land or what it was for. But you really start to build that trust with your soul and the universe, that you are being guided even if you don't realize it yet. I think Steven Spielberg said this. He said, the only difference between me and other creatives is that I learned to listen to the whispers of inspiration, which in my mind, I feel like is the whisper of the soul. And he said, it's very quiet. It's very quiet. So you have to get very practiced at hearing it. And I think that's what meditation and that internal work is all about. That's really what we're helping to facilitate at SoulPod, is the ability to get quiet enough, consistently enough, that you can hear those whispers from your soul.
And I think for anybody who's in that point of resistance, where you find yourself pulling still. I use this metaphor a lot. You know, when you're driving and you skid out on ice, and instead of turning like opposite way, you're meant to let go of the wheel and it course correct. I've used that a lot in my own life of like, where am I gripping onto the wheel to try and do it myself? How can I let go and be guided towards realignment? And And I think for anyone who's, like I said, in that point of resistance, asking yourself, what about this thing that I'm holding on to, whether it be a place you live, a relationship, a career, version of self, what about it am I so attached to? What about it do I believe is so imperative for my worthiness, right? Like what if I let go of it? Am I still worthy? Am I still inherently perfection, inherently divine, inherently love? Without this job, am I still that? Without this relationship, am I still that? Whatever the thing is, am I still love? Am I still worthy? And the answer is always going to be yes. And so then it becomes a little bit easier to let go, to trust that even without this thing that I love, this thing that has become such a part of my identity, even without that, I am still inherently worthy. Coming back to that, when you're at a place of fear, resistance, tension in your spiritual journey, it just loosens things a little bit, gives you a little bit more space to breathe and to take that next step, especially if it's one into the unknown.
I love that. The resistance, and this might be a little controversial to say, the resistance that you're talking about on the spiritual journey, there are different angles that the universe is speaking to you through. It may try one angle, which could be you're just feeling that inner angst about where you live, but you're not listening to it yet. There's still too much fear. There's still too much attachment to the known, understandably, but attachment. And then you may get another bump from the universe, which is maybe you lose your job. And now you really have no tether to where it is that you're currently living. It's also whenever those moments start to happen in your life, I think it's really important to pay attention to them because there is an opportunity. And let's say you don't take the cue and you continue to hold on, those nudges can get increasingly intense. I'm not saying that's the way it always goes, but on my own awakening journey, whenever those events are realigning, especially if it's in proximity to me doing deep work, like I did 10 days of deep work the other month, and there was a lot that moved in my life in the week before and the weeks after. I was like, okay, this is the universe responding to my own alignment that I'm building. Things are moving. And that trust that you talk about is so important because even if it seems difficult or you're being pushed in this way or kind of pushed in this way, there is always a reason for it. So it becomes so much more magical and easeful when you can embrace that rather than push against it.
Totally. There's such a invitation for each of us to become our own energetic reader. There are so many times on my journey when I look back where there was a specific opportunity or nudge where I was so convinced that the universe was asking me to do one thing. But then I kind of thought I was like failing by doing the other thing. And then that's actually what I was meant to do. It becomes so much more playful when you look at your journey and you approach it from a more playful lens of like, what am I really being asked to do here? Like, am I being asked to use my voice? Am I being asked to set a boundary? Am I being asked to, step into my worthiness? What am I being asked to do here? And only you can diagnose what the next step is. For example, before I called in my now fiance, I was dating this person who was so unaligned. In hindsight, it's like, and I'd broken things off. I'd declined all of his advances over and over again. And then he comes through again. The universe brings him back again. And each time he'd come back previously, I could feel in my body, I'm like, it's a clear no. This is an opportunity for me to say no. And then this one time he came back and it didn't feel like I was meant to say no. And I didn't know why, because every other time I knew that I was meant to say no. And so in this one instance, I had to say yes. And so I listened, I said yes. And then it was short lived, but the universe needed me to have that experience so that I could learn this one last lesson. And then it was my opportunity to say a final no. 4 days later, met my now fiance.
No, the same thing happened to me with my now husband.
Not surprised a lot.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I called off a very involved relationship, and within 1 week, I met my my now husband.
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, when the ex comes back, you're meant to say no. But there's again, your compass, your inner guidance, and be like,
Mm,
no, I don't think that the lesson here is for me to keep
mm,
saying no. There's something else that I need to learn. Otherwise, it it just feels different this time. And so again, it's just that like you are the only one who can
mm-hmm.
diagnose the pattern.
Sovereignty, that you are your
Mm-hmm.
energy, your consciousness, your journey is ultimately your responsibility. And for me, with that particular experience, it
Mm-hmm.
really was awakening to my sovereignty when it doesn't feel good in my body. Instead of looking to others to tell me what's right or wrong, I can tell what's right or wrong. A very, very powerful lesson on the awakening journey. And as we close here, a lot of people are wondering,
Mm-hmm.
how do I best navigate my awakening process and my journey? What are the practical elements here? And I think one
Mm.
of the most basic from my perspective is intention. And what I mean by intention in this context is, are you interested in awakening in this lifetime? It sounds like a very big question, and I don't think it's one that we ask ourselves very often, but this provided me a lot of clarity in my own journey was, okay, what
Mm-hmm.
is my intention when it comes to my spiritual relationship in this lifetime? And I've talked to people who said, Crystal, I'm I very much value the spiritual journey. I don't think this is the lifetime for me to awaken. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very much in the known, the human, and there's an awareness there that I deeply respect that
Totally.
they're like not for me now. Maybe the next lifetime is going to be the one that I dig in. And I think that's so powerful that you have that awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that intention. Sitting with the question, what's my intention? For me, my intention is to fully self realize in this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that ends up meaning. That is one of my top goals. Everything else from there is related, but that's my personal intention.
Mm-hmm.
Because then when you get clear on that, the universe can start to respond to you. The field of possibilities, the interstitial connection that ties us all together can start to hear that and feel that
Mm-hmm.
through your thoughts, your feelings, and intention, your aligned action. It can start to respond. And then number two is, what kind of modalities do you want to bring into your experience to help support that process, to support that
Mm-hmm.
intention? That can be all kinds of things. Again, there's no right or wrong here. I very much believe in the spiritual scientist approach.
Mm.
Feel into it, pay attention to your heart space. It will guide you every single
Mm-hmm.
time. What is aligned for you? One of the foundations, unsurprisingly for me, is meditation, which
Mm-hmm.
means to become familiar with who it is that you are and who it is that you're aligning with, your soul, and realizing that oneness and bringing it into this dimension. Meditation's a big way in. Breath work is a big portal. Psychedelics is a big portal. But I think personally that if you can develop that meditative muscle to access elevated states of consciousness on your own every day, that is potent. It will change your life. I have absolutely no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And I could keep on
Mm-hmm.
going, but Kat, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you're, listening to this episode, there's most likely a seed of curiosity as to how you can spiritually evolve, how you can more deeply step into your greatest potential and into a more wholly encompassed human experience. And so, if that's your intention, if you're here to explore the depths of your being as a soul in a human body, it's truly about finding the modalities that best create and invite in that union. For me, it's meditation, it's that stillness, and we're going to have so many more episodes about what is happening in our brains and in our brainwave state when we drop into meditation, and why that is such a lucrative place to rewire the brain. But essentially what we need to do is find a modality that helps us kind of dissolve our default neural network.
Mm,
And
hmm.
kind of our default way of being, all of the networks of the character of Cat, right? Of the character of who we are that we have so identified with for our entire lives, basically zooming out from that. So, whatever that modality is, Crystal said this in one of her journeys, and it's so beautiful, that moves you from someone and something to no one and nothing to everyone and everything. Whatever moves you along that spectrum, that is, it's like your safe place for the spiritual journey. That's where
Mm,
it's like the melting pot of where we integrate the experiences, where we categorize kind of what's happening, why it's happening, and from a place of higher knowing, not from our intellectual mind, not from our, put it all into Excel, this happened, then this happened, and blah, 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 blah. Not from there, but from a place of like divine choreography and from just
mm.
something so much grander and more, yeah, in order than we can as human beings do on our own. And yeah, truly, SoulPod is just such a beautiful, beautiful tool to have in your toolkit. And that's what's so beautiful too. It's like you have a whole toolkit. You just like when you reach a point of resistance or a crux point in your journey, you just whip open your jacket and you're like, "Okay, what do I need? Do I need
Mm,
SoulPod? Do I need to go swim? Do I need to do art? Do I need to journal?" Like what is the tool that is going to move me along that spectrum of someone and something to everyone and everything?
yeah, I think Kat's ended perfectly with that.
Mhm.
So thank you all for such a beautiful episode, our first episode,
Yeah.
and more to come on the SoulPod podcast. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you, Crystal. It was so much fun.
Thank you for journeying with us today, Light Being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.